Yuki had always lived a peaceful life with her grandfather in a small, remote town in Japan. Now 21, she had moved to Miami, where she worked as a journalist. Life in the bustling city was vibrant, and she loved her work, thriving in the fast-paced environment. One evening, she and her friends decided to have a girls' night in her apartment. Music was loud, laughter echoed through the walls, and the smell of delicious food filled the air. It was a night to unwind and have fun. As midnight approached, they decided to share ghost stories. While her friends were excited, Yuki felt a chill as she remembered a frightening tale. That her grandfather used to tell her the story of Kuchisake-onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. The next morning, after her friends had left, Yuki sat quietly, trying to recall the eerie details of the story. Her grandfather had described Kuchisake-onna as a beautiful woman with a flawless face and a tall, striking figure. But her husband, consumed by jealousy, would beat her daily. One fateful night, after seeing her laughing and conversing with other men, he violently slit her mouth from ear to ear with scissors, murdering her in a brutal act. Her spirit returned as a vengeful ghost, and soon people began disappearing from the town. Yuki vividly remembered her grandfather's description of the ghost, a woman who wore a surgical mask, which was common in Japan. When she removed it, her mouth was grotesquely slit, stretching from ear to ear, exposing her teeth in a horrifying grin. Haunted by these memories, Yuki decided to revisit her hometown. She took a month off from her job in Miami and booked a flight to Japan. The journey was long and arduous, filled with anticipation and trepidation. When she arrived in the small town late at night, she found that transportation options were limited, and she struggled to find a hotel. Just as she was about to give up, a man in a black hat and outfit approached her. Despite her fear, she accepted his offer for a ride, explaining her quest to uncover the truth about Kuchisake-onna. During the drive, the man suddenly stopped and, in a state of panic, asked, "What is Kuchisake-onna?" His face was pale, and sweat beaded on his forehead. After a few tense moments, he began to recount his terrifying experience. He used to live in the town with his impoverished family. One rainy day, his father fell ill and his older brother went into the forest to collect wild vegetables to buy medicine. When his brother did not return after 5 hours, then he ventured into the forest to search for him. The rain poured heavily and darkness enveloped the forest. Calling out for his brother, he heard only his own echo. As he wandered, he saw a tall woman approaching him through the rain, holding something in her hand. Although she spoke, he couldn't understand her words. Fearful, he asked, "Who are you?" "Can you hear me?" she repeatedly asked.
Am I beautiful? Am I beautiful?
When he saw her clearly, he recognized the surgical mask and the scissors she held. The legend warned that if one answered yes, she would reveal her mutilated face and ask again. What about now? If the answer was still yes, she would slit their face to make them as beautiful as her. Terrified, the man was paralyzed with fear and fainted. After a few hours passed, he awoke in his room with his mother by his side, learning that his brother had returned safely after being found by villagers. The family decided to leave the town immediately. To this day, he did not know why and never questioned his family. Yuki listened intently as they arrived at her grandfather's house. The house was isolated, built far from the town due to her grandfather's notorious temper. After a warm welcome and a late meal, Yuki went to bed, exhausted. The next day, Yuki tried to gather information about Kuchisake-onna from the villagers, but they remained tight-lipped. That evening, while sipping tea and reflecting on her encounter, she saw a tall figure behind a tree, clad in traditional kimono and wearing a surgical mask. Her heart raced with fear as the figure whispered,
Am I beautiful?
A hand touched her shoulder and she turned to find her grandfather concerned. Shaking, she assured him, "I'm fine," but when she looked back, the figure was gone. Determined to find the truth, Yuki searched the area the next day but found nothing. Disheartened, she was about to return when she discovered a large scissor lying on the ground. Overcome by both fear and curiosity, she took the scissor with her back to Miami. Then, after returning, Yuki placed the scissor in a locker, planning to research it later. After a relaxing bath, she made herself coffee and sat at her table. Hours later, she remembered the scissor and opened the locker, only to find it empty. Her blood ran cold as she realized the scissor had vanished. Was the ghost now in her home, or had she unwittingly brought something malevolent with her? That night, as she lay in bed, a chill filled the room. Shadows danced on the walls, and a low whisper echoed through the dark. Yuki sat up, her heart pounding, as she heard the chilling question again, "Am I beautiful?" Her breath came in short gasps as she saw a figure standing at the foot of her bed, tall, with a surgical mask and scissors gleaming in the moonlight. The figure stepped closer, the mask obscuring its face, but the eyes burning with a malevolent intent. Yuki tried to move, but her body was frozen with terror. The figure's voice, a distorted, echoing whisper, asked, "What about now?" She could feel the presence of the ghost closing in, the air growing colder with each passing second. Desperately, she reached for her phone to call for help, but it slipped from her trembling hands. Just as the figure raised the scissors, as a deafening crash shattered the silence, the locker door flew open, and the missing scissor fell to the floor. The figure paused, turning its attention to the fallen object. Seizing the moment, Yuki bolted from the room, her screams echoing through the apartment. She fled to the street, not stopping until she reached a nearby 24-hour diner. The next morning, Yuki returned to her apartment with police and a team of investigators. The apartment was eerily quiet, and there was no sign of the ghost. The scissor was found in the locker, but no other evidence of the spirit was discovered. The police were skeptical but agreed to increase patrols around her area. Though the immediate threat seemed to be gone, Yuki could never shake the feeling that something dark had been unleashed. The whisper, "Am I beautiful?" haunted her dreams, and every shadow and creak in her apartment left her on edge. The ghost may have been gone for now, but the fear of what she had brought back lingered, a chilling reminder of her fateful encounter with Kuchisake-onna. Some legends are better left in the past, because they might just follow you home.